Hello, I'm back. I've got more news to talk about. This time it's coming from. Let's lift this up just a tiny bit. This time, it's still coming by way of my Nintendo news, and it's just something I wanted to talk about. So, Midori, and this is a quote from them. I should be going. I should be flipping over to this real quick, and I'm not doing it. All of the Sega reboots are coming to the Switch too. Proven Sega Atlas leaker Midori has commented further on the slate of remakes in the works over at Sega, and now says that all of them are destined for the successor to the Nintendo Switch. Sega previously announced that Jet Set Radio, Golden Axe, Shinobi, Streets of Rage, and Crazy Taxi are all being revived, though it refused to announce platforms. It now seems as though these titles will be skipping the original Nintendo Switch and will instead land on the unannounced Switch 2. So we have these from Twitter, I'm guessing, from old Tweeter. And yeah, they were asked about, let's not do that like that. I didn't want to do that like that. Uh there's a bunch of stuff going on here. So there's a rumor the new Jet Set Radio is not a remake, but an open world reboot that merges Jet Set Radio and Jet Set Radio Future. The title of this game will be Jet Set Radio Blast. That's actually a really, really, really cool name, if you ask me. So then they asked Midori, that's their handle, please confirm this. The new JSR title is a reboot that merges elements of both titles. There are multiple worlds planned at launch. The release year is currently 2026, so not next year, but that doesn't mean the Switch isn't coming out next year or even at the end of this year. It just means that's probably when it'll be complete and ready for prime time. That's probably what that means. So yeah, the new Jet Set Radio game is not a remake. The game is a reboot that will be released in 2026. A remaster version of Jet Set Radio was also planned. Ah, okay. A remake of the original Jet Set Radio will also be released in 2026. JSR remake for Switch 2. This is correct information. Uh, After Atlas and Sega remake is also releasing on every you blew it. Every Atlas and Sega remake is also releasing on Switch 2. What about the original Switch? I know the answer is most likely no, but I don't know if I'm ready to get to upgrade yet. Sega will continue to release some remake titles on the Switch if it is possible, but this may change depending on the sales of the next Nintendo hardware. Anything on a Rhythm Thief? This person's like, we'll see. I mean, Nakamura still acknowledges the IP via Samba de Amigo. Okay, so that's interesting. So these are all meant to be Switch 2 bound, unless the hardware doesn't sell very well. So it's basically this whole thought process of, oh hey, Switch 2 isn't selling that well. It's not taken off. They're not selling tons of I hate this. Don't do this. It's not selling tons of units, not enough for us, but hey, there's plenty of Switch units that are out there, right? Plenty of Switch units that are out there. Let's just release them on the original Switch. And if the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, we'll still be able to play them on the Switch 2, maybe even enhanced a little bit. So there is that. The reason I wanted to mention this is some of the other things that have been popping up on Twitter have been people calling for other IPs such as the Shining series to get new life from Sega, and Sega owns they own the rights to the Shining series. And if you don't know what the Shining series is, the Shining series I believe started with Shining in the Darkness on the Sega Genesis. Then we got Shining Force 1, Shining Force 2. We got two Game Gear Shining Forces that were then remade for the Sega CD. We had Shining Force 3 that was on the Sega Saturn, which didn't even get the complete game released in the West. It only got like the first chapter of the third game released in the US. And then there were Saturn games such as Shining the Holy Ark and Oh, I can't remember the other one. It was like an overhead Zelda-esque game. And then eventually they made new iterations or new shining games, but they were nothing like everything that led up to that point. The art style drastically changed. It was not made by it wasn't made by Sonic Software Planning, which by the way went on to become Camelot Software Planning. Camelot then made a little gem, well, it's a gem to me, on the PS1 called Beyond the Beyond, which they then went on to work with Nintendo, and we got two games that just came out on the Switch Online service, Golden Sun 1 and 2. They even did a third one, which was on the DS. I don't know if we'll ever see that one again, but yeah. So, um, people are asking, Sega, maybe the Shining series, and if there's any company that would possibly work on that, I would assume it would be Atlas. I think Atlas should work on it. Maybe it was Atlas that worked on the newer Shining games, the new Shine. I can't remember what they were called, but they were on the. I think the last console to get any was the PlayStation 2, and they were terrible. I don't even think they came out in the West. I might be wrong on that one. They were terrible in that they were action games more or less. They weren't RPGs. They weren't even tactical RPGs as far as I could tell. I might be wrong. And they shifted from a very Disney-esque, cutesy sort of art style, and they switched over to a generic anime style. Very unappealing, very lacking in charm, and people want to see that come over. I'm hoping maybe I would like to personally see Shining in the Darkness get like a full-on remaster. A full-on, I hate to use the word remake, but yeah, just upgrade those visuals, upgrade the first person dungeon perspective and everything, just upgrade it, you know. Maybe redo the Shining Force games as well. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. I think it's a matter of of how well these other things that are being made, like Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Shinobi. I get the feeling Shinobi's going to do well enough. It's being made by the same folks who made the Streets of Rage 4. It's being made by them in a similar art style, hand drawn. So it's not being done in pixel art or anything, which, truth be told, I would really love another pixel art type Shinobi game, but we'll see how it goes. But okay, so first and foremost, I'm a Sega guy, but Sega's not in the console ring anymore. Sega is not, you know, Sega's not, um, they're not the company they used to be. And as a kid, I was mostly a Sega kid, mostly. I was way more into Sega. But then, uh, we know how that went down. But so I get excited anytime I hear anything having to do with Sega, just to know that they're trying at least, you know. So I still want to know what this Switch 2 is going to be. Is it going to be called a Switch 2? Is it going to be called a Switch Advance? Is it going to be called a Super Nintendo Switch? What is it going to be called? Is it going to be called a Nintendo Switch Pro or a new Nintendo Switch? Because knowing Nintendo, I think it's a dumb name, but the word new kind of resonates with Japanese people, but it doesn't really resonate with the rest of the world. Just slapping the word new on there doesn't really ring for the rest of the world. So, but we'll see how this goes. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I'm excited for whatever's to come. Just new hardware being announced is exciting. Even if I can't afford it, because little bit of tidbit of information here. Yeah, a little tidbit of information here. My Switch was actually gifted to me by a subscriber on my channel. It was not something that I was able to buy. So there's no telling if I'll be able to get Nintendo's next hardware. I don't know yet if I'm even actually going to want it, but I'm hoping it's something that slaps me across the face and screams down my throat that in such a way that just makes me have to have it. You know what I'm saying? Anyhow, this has been the Goof. Thank you for tuning in. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you again.